Hey everyone, welcome to the How to Draw Props video. So let's start with the first lesson. So for props, it's actually a really great way to learn how to draw and how to learn construction. So let me set up my right brush. So I usually draw objects, characters with three kinds of shapes, like a ball and a cylinder, like this. So really learn how to draw through these shapes. And here these lines are perspective guides, and they help me understand how shapes are in 3D. And I will explain more about this along the way. But this is basically the basic I use. And with these three shapes, I can draw anything I want because you can also morph them. But I will show that more later. So for example, if we draw this defeat, we can use these shapes. So yeah, props. So maybe some people find props a bit dull to draw, but it's actually a really good way to learn how to draw at all. And it's also interesting to learn because it can be a great way to get into the industry. For example, if you want to become um, an artist at the studio, oftentimes you will start as a prop artist, making model sheets. For example, if you see a movie or a game, all those things need to be designed. And for example, if you see in a movie, you see something like a TV and television or a couch or any other object, that objects need to be designed. Of course, especially when it's made in if it's an animated feature. So here I'm showing how to start with that big shape, and then I start adding in all these smaller shapes. So now I'm going a bit quickly. In the next examples I'm going to show, I will take some more time so you can follow along. But I wanted to start this so you can get a bit of an impression on how I draw, that you can see how I actually sketch. That you can see that I start with drawing in these big shapes first, and then inside these big shapes I start drawing smaller shapes. So what I would recommend is to follow along and practice these kinds of drawing. So for example, use the ebook or this image and start start drawing from that. So here, and then here we have this shape. And so on. So it could be useful to first learn how to draw perspective, so you get a good understanding of how to draw these things correctly. It's also useful to, when you learn perspective, that you can guess all these things. So here you can see I'm not always drawing all those perspective lines, but I practiced perspective and that really helped me. But here in this course, I will go more into depth about how to draw these kinds of things. So this was a quick sketch of how to draw this TV. But let's first continue to the next objects. So here we have this pumpkin. And as you can see, here we have this ball, basically. And I always start with these big shapes, like this here. Or let's draw a shape like this here. Or a shape like this here. And you can draw these things on top. So once you have those big shapes, you can start drawing these shapes inside it. And I would recommend people to start start drawing all these kinds of weird shapes. Maybe try to draw your own pumpkins. So start with some shape, and just this is a really good exercise for your sketchbook or just on paper. Draw some random shapes and draw these faces on top of this. So here you can see I'm adding these kinds of lines, right? So these perspective guides, and that will help me getting the sense of depth in those shapes, like this here. And then you can draw in along. And again, I will show more about it later. But here with this, this one, I wanted to show how to how to use these shapes to draw your characters. So here, following along, this shape here, drawing this shape here, so this face here, and then drawing these details. So again, also here, you can see I'm drawing this mouth here. And then on top of that mouth, I'm drawing these kinds of shapes like this, following that line. So let's move on to the next one, this bomb. So again, here maybe we can go a bit in depth about it here with this one. So starting with a circle. So what I usually do is when I sketch a circle, I start drawing these lines a couple of times. And once I think there's a circle inside it, I make it lighter. And I'm drawing a single line like this here. So drawing circles is always really hard. You can also use a selection tool to make a perfect circle. Or when you're drawing on paper, you also have tools to draw circles. But here, well, it's pretty close. It's close enough, especially when we're drawing cartoon shapes. So here with this tool, you can draw your circle. So something like this, but I don't think it's necessary. So now we've drawn this, and we can start drawing in again some guides. So here we have this line, this here, and let's start drawing this line here. And let's draw this line on top of it, following this here, like this. And let's start adding a line like this here. And now it starts to get a bit of, you get this 3D feeling. And why I'm doing that is so now I can understand how to draw these. That will help me drawing these other shapes on top of it. So it's the same technique I'm using to draw characters. So you're drawing this shape. And again, this could be your job, right? That you have to, maybe you're making a pirate game or something, and you have to design a bomb. And then you need to make a model sheet of a bomb. And a model sheet is what they use, for example, they use it to make 3D models. So here, drawing this bomb of this diffuse, and here as well. So if you have for example, take an object in real life and turn it around, and then you see how the things on it morph around. So for example, here this skeleton head, it also goes a little bit of it goes around this object, right? So if there was an yeah, this shape around it, you would see it follows the curve of this bomb. So really think about how these things go around. But I always start with drawing these big shapes first. For example, with this texture, you can see I'm going around the shape here, like this. Then like this here. And now drawing these lines like this, following along this shape, like this here. And yeah, that's basically how I draw these kinds of things. So once I've make this, I can start drawing on these details. So for example, here, these scratches are also going around the shape. So always try to understand how these shapes are going around the object, like this here. Here this follows this line, then here it follows this curve again. The shape here, the shape here, etc. So here, that is how I draw these things. For example, here also. So it's useful to think 3D. So you can also sketch in these kinds of effects. So I would really recommend, yeah, practice first these kinds of simple objects before moving along. So I want to show a little bit on how to color these things. And yeah, just let me show this here. You can take this drawing, and I put this ink drawing on multiply because it's white. So when I now paint behind it, it's getting hidden because of that white filled. So put it on multiply and put a layer behind it. And let's take a brush like this here. Or you can just use any selection tool or any other object. For these round objects, I often like to use the brush. So here. And I can start coloring the drawing like this here. So going around. Here. So erasing this a little bit, like this here. And it doesn't matter which kind of program you're using. If you're using Procreate, Krita, yeah, there are so many possibilities here. I'm using Adobe Photoshop, but they all have these kinds of tools. But what I want to focus on is that, yeah, show a little bit how I shade these things. So I have this shape, and then I take a color and make it a little bit darker. And I start shading stuff like this here. And here you can see step by step how I do it. So in a later video, I will show how I paint these things or how I color these things more, but here's a little bit of an introduction to this. This first lesson, I wanted to focus on how to draw all these kinds of objects. So here, a crate. So we basically, maybe the television was already more complex than this. But yeah, drawing, I also get a lot of questions about how to learn how to draw all these kinds of objects from different angles. And I think I will talk about it more with the present. But it's really good to learn how to draw these cubes, because that will help you to draw these objects in different angles. So that's why it's really good to learn how to draw and think in 3D, because that will make it easier to draw an object like this here. So again, if you haven't learned perspective, go check that out. I made a different course about it, so I don't want to go too much in detail about it. Especially when you learn perspective, at one point you want to learn how to freehand that. So first practice the perspective, and then after that you can start drawing like I here do that. So I think of all these perspective lines, but I'm not drawing them all. So here, this is actually another trick I learned from drawing perspective. Here, drawing these crosses here, like this. And that will help me where to place certain lines. For example, if I want to draw a bulk of a square inside this square in perspective, it will help me to be precise with that. And I'm not going for a realistic style, so it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you want, you can also figure out how to draw this square perfectly inside it with this this actually quite simple trick. That's also a technique you could actually do on paper. And again, you see me working here in Adobe Photoshop, but I can also recommend you to practice this on drawing this on paper, because learning to do this on paper will make it easier to draw digitally. So almost every beginner every beginner artist, I would advise to learn first on paper. And having said that, I can totally understand if you want to skip it and of course make digital art right away. And that's also fine, but at least try to draw once in a while on paper with a pencil, because you learn so much from it, because you don't have all those fancy tools. So it's a way better. I hope you can trust me in when I'm saying that you will learn from it. So here I'm adding these guides here, or these lines here, for the depth. So these blanks are sticking out, right? You see that here a bit clearer. Also here you can see I'm drawing more sketchier than I'm doing here. And I want to say it's totally fine to be even more rough than this, because that will that helps making, because it's quicker and it makes your drawings more lifelike. If you're trying to be really straight with everything, you suck the life out of it. And sketchier, it gives a lot more energy. But I often clean it up for the ebook and video to make it a little bit clearer. But here you can actually see how I usually sketch. So once I have this drawing, I erase it a little bit. And depending on what I'm going to do, I draw on top of this layer, or I'm going to make a new layer on top of that and use that. So now I can start making the final lines. I don't want to bore you with that, because I think that's not really interesting. It's great. And then you can draw in all these textures. And I first want you to focus on the drawing part. And you can see I added some light here. What I can say about is that if you want to color something, try to think of the light direction. So here, this arrow, you can see that where the light is, right? So that means that there's a lot of light here, and this is a little bit darker, and this is the darkest plane. So you can see that here. And here I added some shadow on these sides, because there isn't a lot of light. Also here, and etc. And here this is called a cast shadow drawing here. But again, in a later video, I will go a bit more depth in that. But at first, I want you to really focus on learning how to draw, actually. So here, this barrel, and I want to start talking a little bit about morphing. So if I'm going to draw a barrel, I actually start with drawing a cylinder like this here. But yeah, if you're making a barrel out of this, it would be kind of boring, right? I want to morph these edges like this here, like this, to get that barrel look, what I'm doing here. And now I'm drawing these lines around it, like this here. And also here, around, like this. Can you see how these shapes are going around? And also these lines going around like this here. So here, can you see how I follow along with these shapes? So these lines are going around here, and then I'm adding these lines here. So what I would recommend, and I don't really find it interesting to show every drawing how I made it from beginning to end. I really think it's better to even follow these images and try it out, and you will learn more about it because it's more challenging. No worries, I will also make some videos about how to start and end drawing, so I will also show that. But I would also really recommend to put on this image, go draw this image. If you're doing it on paper or digitally, that doesn't really matter. Turn on some music and enjoy. Yeah, really try to understand it, and don't be frustrated when it doesn't work. It's learning to draw takes time. It's not a magic trick that, oh, now you got it and learn it. No, you need to practice it a lot. So we'll also give you some exercises, and one of those exercises will be going to draw a present. But let's start really simple with this this present. And while I'm drawing this present, let me also share a bit more about why it's important to learn how to draw props. As I said earlier, it could be a great thing to learn to draw first, to get a job at a game company or working for a TV show or anything, because it's a great, and it doesn't have to be, it can also be more experienced, but it can be a great thing you have to do as an intern, as an internship, drawing props like this, or as a beginner position, because all these things need to be designed. And I don't want you to think that it isn't important, because it really is, but a lot of times it's being done by junior members, and that's why it's also really good. If you have a portfolio full with props and you go apply, you can show you can really draw props well, and not a lot of people are doing that, then that will increase your chances of getting a job as an artist. So here, drawing these shapes, and then here, drawing shapes like this. So this is actually how my rough sketch often looks like, and then after that we can start cleaning up. Let me show that really quickly. So when this is my rough sketch, I just start. I can start drawing on the final lines and understand, or the final lines. Maybe first a sketch before I start adding the final lines. So really try to also understand volume. What I mean with volume is that here I am adding this edge, right? Here's this edge. So if you're going to look at it 3D, and here I'm drawing this wireframe like this here, this gives this sense of depth on top of it. Here you can also see that I'm not, so here these shapes are going inside it. So it's not all perfectly straight. I'm playing around with different kinds of lines, like this here. And then going around this here, like this. And then here. And then going around here. And then here. Then here. Going around here. Drawing this line here. Then this line here. And etc. So this is really rude. I would really recommend practice it by drawing this image step by step and try to figure out how I did it and etc. And yeah, really learn from it. Also note, for example, how this shape is going around this shape, right? It's really good to practice these things. So once you've practiced that, what I mentioned earlier, I get a lot of questions on how to draw all these kinds of objects from different angles. And that's why it's so useful to learn how to draw in all these kinds of shapes. So I really believe you can basically break everything down in spheres, cubes, and what is more, balls, spheres, cylinders, and cubes. You can break everything down in that, and those shapes are more easy to draw in different angles. For example, if we look at this this present, we can also draw it in this angle, right? Or maybe we can draw it in this angle. So this angle is actually called foreshortening, that this side really feels close to the camera and this feels far away. So yeah, really try to think about that. So here. So, and then on top of that, you can start adding these shapes. But when you first draw this basic shape first in an angle, then it makes it easier to draw these other shapes. Even this shape, yeah, if you break this down first in shapes like I did here, then it's also easier to draw it in a different angle, because now we can erase it. And I can start drawing on top of this here. So this is really challenging, but I would recommend you to first practice this step by step first. And after you practice that, try to apply it to these kinds of shapes. Try to draw, for example, yeah, let's take this one. Let's do this here. So here, this shape, try drawing this shape. Don't trace it. Try drawing it. Try to be as close as you can, right? Like this here. And now erase it. And we can start drawing a line here. There's this line going maybe a bit, yeah, like this here. And yeah, I also want that this shape stands out a little bit. So now adding this shape, and then let's make this circle a little bit smaller. So also see how I'm drawing through the shape, and that's trying, yeah, to get that idea of how it's going around, like this here. And now let's add this this other line, like this here. And let's draw this on top of this here. And now we can start drawing this shape here. And then here. Like this. And let's draw this shape here. Maybe I don't like this so much. Maybe do something like this here to make it more playful and interesting. Yeah, and then you can finish it like I did here. But basically, I would challenge you to use all these kinds of different shapes and make you and draw these presents things on top of that, because that will help you understand how to draw these shapes from different angles. So I would really recommend to practice that. And after that, you can draw your own shapes, draw them from different angles. Try to fill a page with drawing cylinders, spheres, cubes from all these different angles, and you will learn so much from that. I can really recommend that. And again, you can, yeah, if you draw a triangle like this, so it's basically a cube through half, right? And I don't actually draw a triangle like that, but if you, for example, you have this this box, like this here, and we're drawing a line from this point to this point, and we cut it through half, like this here, we've drawn a cake shape, right? And now we can draw these shapes on top of it, like this here. Just try to draw along, and etc., and some layers. Again, I would recommend practice that. And here at this stage, I find this the most important step. Adding this shading, I will share more about that later. But in this first video, I want to challenge you to draw all these kinds of different. So maybe try to design your own cake. Look up a picture from the internet and try to break it down in a shape like this and try to design it yourself. So first practice this one, and then try to find the internet a different kind of cake or something and try to break it down in shapes. I would really recommend it. So go to your internet search engine, search for cake photo, and try to break that cake down first in the biggest shape and then add some smaller shapes on top of that. It's a really good practice. And also you can try to draw that from different angles as well, because yeah, drawing these kinds of shapes from different angles is easier than all those details. So that's also why I hate that meme with that owl, that you have to draw an owl and that they start with circle and then draw the rest of the owl. And I find it irritating because yeah, that's basically how drawing works. So that fundament, those circles and etc. is really important. And I really want to trust people that yeah, sometimes I also get a reply from, oh, you're only showing how to draw with these basic shapes, but it's so important if you really learn how to draw with these shapes. For example, now I'm drawing this cake actually in a different angle. So here, once I have this, that is such a big part of drawing this cake. Of course, now we have to draw all these other shapes on top of it. For example, here these balls like this here, and then first these figures, but I just draw them first like shapes like this, right? And also here these things. See how I start with drawing a shape like this here, and I want you to experiment yourself. Of course, I'm showing you how to draw these things, but I really want you to figure out that yourself. So you can start with the circle and then draw this tear shape inside that, and etc. So you can every object you draw, you can break down in the big shape first and then break down the smaller shape. For example, here this thing, start with a circle, and you don't even have to start with a circle. Then draw here these lines. And you can actually, if you really find difficult, you can sketch these things or imagine it, these lines, and then you can draw these lines around it to get that shape right. And then you can maybe starting to adjust the silhouette. So the silhouette is the outer shape of an object like this here. And for example, here these flowers start with a circle, and then you draw this in the middle. Then you also break that down in shapes like this here. So yeah, that's basically my secret. And then I start drawing in all these details last. And again, later I will show a whole drawing from A to Z, drawing in all the details. But I first really want you to focus on these steps. So go draw some presents from different angles, draw some cakes also from different angles. Try to follow my tutorials here step by step, but also go find, maybe you can find a real object and try to break that down in a shape and learn from that. I really hope you trust me by doing that. And it can be really hard. So take your time for it. It can be frustrating. It was also frustrating for me to learn, but I would really recommend just keep practicing, have fun, and yeah, maybe just try to practice it. And then if you get frustrated, go do something else, or go just sketch something for fun of it. But yeah, it's also a little bit like working out. You learn a lot from doing exercises like this. So yeah, thanks for watching this first part.